So I'm calling this meeting of the Department of Information Resources Board to order. The time is 10:02 a.m. Teresa, would you please call roll for quorum?
Jeffrey Allison. Catherine Bella.
Yes, I'm here.
Frank Coppersmith.
Here.
Stephen Frankie.
Here.
Keith Paulman.
Here.
Jeffrey Tayon. Jeffrey Tayon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm here.
Brian Collier. Melody Parrish. David Yaskowitz. Oh, sorry, Melody Parrish.
Here.
David Yaskowitz. Ben Gatsky.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much. This DIR board meeting has a hybrid meeting structure that's compliant with the Open Meetings Act. The meeting takes place at the physical location identified by the DIR agenda, with me as the board presiding officer on the premises. The public may participate in the meeting either in person or at the physical location, or through Zoom at the Zoom link provided in the DIR agenda. For Zoom attendees, you may see and hear through the Zoom video and audio of the Open Meetings physical premises and of the DIR board members or speaking panelists who are participating by Zoom. For those in attendance at the William P. Clements Building, you'll see that we have set up monitors and speakers to ensure that you may see and hear the video of any board member participating by Zoom. DIR staff presenting to the board at this meeting will present either in person or through Zoom. If a DIR employee is presenting through Zoom, you will see and hear their video and audio throughout this room by way of the monitors and speakers that are set up. Members of the public who wish to address the board may do so either in person or through Zoom. If you plan to provide public comment in person, please ensure you've indicated your intent to do so on the sign-in sheet at the table by the entryway. For those of you participating by Zoom who indicated during registration that you would like to provide public comment, you will be called by name to do so later in the meeting. Until that time, all Zoom attendees will remain muted. This ensures an orderly process so the board can hear your comment fully. The general chat function in Zoom has been disabled to ensure DIR's compliance with Open Meetings Act requirements. Attendees, please do not attempt to communicate with the DIR board or each other through any other Zoom messaging or question and answer functionality that may be available to you. If you'd like to address DIR's board, please ensure that you indicate during the Zoom registration or on the sign-in sheet by the door that you would like to provide public comment. Board members participating by Zoom, you must have your video on at all times to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. However, please make sure that you are muted unless you are speaking. This will minimize disruptions and echoes. You'll need to unmute yourself when you are speaking and voting. DIR board members voting will be taken during this meeting by roll call. When you make or second a motion, regardless of whether you are on video or in person, please state your name clearly for the record. This ensures that DIR staff have a reliable and accurate recording of the motion. Members, in your board books, the minutes from the February 2025 board meeting are available and you've had a chance to review them. Do any board members have any corrections to make or discussion about the drafted board minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jeff Tayon. I so move.
May I have a second?
This is Stephen Frankie, a second.
Any discussion? If not, Teresa, please call roll for vote.
Catherine Bella.
Approve.
Frank Coppersmith.
Approved.
Stephen Frankie.
Approved.
Keith Paulman.
Approved.
Jeffrey Tayon.
Yes.
Ben Gatsky.
Approved.
The motion is approved.
Thank you. At this time, I'll hand it over to Amanda for her comments and the recognition of the Can Do Awards.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Gatsky, members. Thanks for joining us today. On behalf of the board, I would like to recognize the DIR Can Do Award winners for February, March, and April. As y'all know, our Can Do Award recognizes a DIR employee who's been nominated by their coworkers who exemplifies our core values. The winners receive administrative leave for outstanding performance, a Can Do coffee mug, and a certificate and recognition for their Can Do all hands on deck attitude. The February winner was from the Deputy Executive Director's Office, and that's Nita Nix, who was nominated by Chris Miller. Mita's been a part of our Chief Data Office for a relatively short time, but her impact to the agency has been far-reaching. She is the tip of the spear when it comes to understanding the data needs across the agency and helping others to develop concepts and dashboards to tell a story using the data. Her can-do spirit is demonstrated by her ability to juggle multiple assignments and her tireless work to complete each with high quality and focus. She puts the customer first, and this shines through in her work every day. Linda Mahan was also nominated in February. In March, also from the Deputy Executive Director's Office, John DeShane was our winner, and he was nominated by multiple people: Brittany Booth Paler, Elizabeth Cooper, Tessa Lopez, Cody Wynn, and Blake Rhodey. John always comes through when DIR needs him the most, and it's about time that he was recognized for his promptness, thoroughness, and most importantly, his can-do attitude. He did tremendous work in preparation for many of our legislative committees. The Office of Public Affairs asked a lot of him on very short notice, and he was able to turn around quality work product that really helped the legislature and DIR in our efforts. So John's ability to be right, be fast under a tight deadline demonstrates his exceptional efficiency. April's winner was Jared Fortenberry in the Office of the Chief Information Security Officer, who was nominated by Stephanie Harrison. Up until recently, Jared was a valuable member of the Chief Procurement Office, and then he moved to OCISO in December. But during his time in the Chief Procurement Office, he led several high-priority procurements. And after receiving the offer for his new role, Jared graciously agreed to see through the negotiations for the procurements that he was leading that were still in flight to the end. So all while learning the ropes of his new role as an OCISO team member. He worked 2 complex positions at DIR with no complaints and that can-do attitude. So we really appreciate Jared for his efforts there. And other nominees in April were James Devine and Mark Castillo. So congratulations to our can-do winners and nominees, and thank you for all that you do. Next, and as y'all may have noticed, we only have one agenda or action item on the agenda, which will be a welcome respite before our August board meeting, which is historically our lengthiest, with budget and other action items that will need your approval before the end of the state fiscal year. Today, I am going to cover, and you'll notice in your board books, we have some slides for you under the Deputy Executive Director that give a summary of the legislative session. Of course, that was an point in time snapshot back then, and a lot has changed. So I'm going to cover some of the highlights from the session rather than going over that today in the meeting. And we will go ahead and send out a more detailed description and summary of what's happened once session actually ends and the ink is dry on a lot of this new legislation. But it was a very busy session with almost 9,000 bills filed. I think that's a new record. The legislature filed myriad bills that relate to information security, technology initiatives, and of course, everyone's favorite efficiency creator, artificial intelligence. I do want to thank Steve Peer and Brittany Booth Paler for so capably managing the public affairs work here at DIR. The 2 of them, joined by Cody Wynn, Elizabeth Cooper, Tessa Lopez, and Blake Rhodey, have done yeoman's work in this arena. Additionally, Nick Villalpando, Eric Frameth, Ann Harrington, Ashley Tedder, and Sally Warward have worked tirelessly on budget requests and fiscal notes, and also a shout out to Jody Erickson and her team for doing the forecasting work and working with our agencies on their budget requests. But even with this hectic pace and workload, DIR had an incredible session. More has happened for DIR in this session than in the last few combined. While there are a few minor details to conclude, such as concurrences between the 2 chambers with second chamber changes to legislation, the session is wrapping up and will conclude this Monday. I want to cover some of the key pieces of legislation. Of course, most importantly and most proudly, our Sunset Bill, House Bill 1500, passed. In many years, in my many years in state government, I've never seen a sunset bill of a major agency move with such ease. There were no questions in either the Senate or House committee, and none on the floor. The comments by the authors and the committee members were incredibly complimentary of DIR, which is a huge change from where we were the last time we went through sunset. I'm incredibly proud of what this agency has become and the team that has brought us here. I'm also thankful to all of you for your leadership and your support in making us the exceptional agency that we are. One of Governor Abbott's emergency items that he laid out in his State of the State address was creating the Texas Cyber Command. That legislation passed, and after concurrence on Senate changes, will be headed to the governor for signature. I've long said that Texas is a national leader in cybersecurity, but you don't stay that way by doing the same things in the same way. So the Texas Cyber Command represents a sea change in the state's commitment to cybersecurity. In addition to moving DIR's cybersecurity function and personnel to the Cyber Command, it creates an enhanced intelligence gathering, analysis, and sharing. It expands the state's ability to respond to incidents across privately and publicly owned critical infrastructure, and it creates a high-end forensics capability, unlike what any other state has. There will be an additional $135 million in general revenue, as well as more employees added to the fight, which is a 4 times increase over what we've ever had. The statewide cybersecurity contracting and procurement function will remain at DIR. So there will obviously be more to come that we will be briefing the board on that and that transition. Not surprisingly, AI was a very popular subject this session. With the bills that have currently passed and are now heading to the governor for signature, DIR is now responsible for the oversight of AI implementation in the state. DIR has been tracking 48 AI-related bills this session. I do want to mention one potential caveat that the U.S. House of Representatives has passed legislation in the current budget bill that would establish a moratorium on state AI laws. So we're going to obviously be keeping a close on that as it progresses through the U.S. Senate to see what impact that could potentially have on any of this new legislation. The Texas Public Sector AI Bill, or Senate Bill 1964 by Senator Parker, covers many facets of the AI regulatory landscape. The omnibus bill would in part create an AI system code of ethics and establish minimum risk management and governance standards to assure the ethical and transparent use of AI. At DIR, the bill would create an AI sandbox for us to further help our government customers to research, develop, test, and train AI systems before deployment. SB 1964 is usually mentioned hand in hand with Chairman Capriglione's HB 149, known as the Texas Responsible Artificial Intelligence Governance Act, or TRIGA, a private sector AI bill. But among other things, it would prohibit certain uses of AI and create an AI council at DIR to make policy recommendations to the legislature surrounding AI use. Again, Chairman Capriglione's House Bill 2818, creates an AI division within DIR and charges us with assisting with AI initiatives, including getting our state government customers started with generative AI. While we've been assisting agencies on this with AI for years, the new division would centralize all of our current efforts, such as our AI user group and the Texas Innovation and Education Center, under one umbrella. One more by Chairman Capriglione, House Bill 3512 would require state employees to take an annual AI literacy training course. Employee education, of course, is one of the most proactive steps that we can take in preventing data breaches, cybersecurity attacks. So addressing this human element on the AI side of things will be just as beneficial for the state. Moving on to the budget. And again, this just came out yesterday on that final budget report. So between Senate Bill 1, the General Appropriations Bill, and the House Bill 500, the Supplemental Appropriations Bill, we have DIR funded items for fiscal years 26 through 27. We received you recall an exceptional item request that we had to increase our FTEs. We received that. So it will increase DIR's FTE count to 316. We received $2.8 million for an e-procurement solution. This is the next phase of that e-procurement solution. $3 million for an IT service management system. And that was for both of those, that is authority. We already had the money, but that's authority to spend. And then up to $20 million for Texas.gov from General Revenue Vehicle Inspection Replacement Fund with the approval of the LBB. For artificial intelligence, $7.4 million and at least 9 FTEs upon the passage of House Bill 149, House Bill 2818, or Senate Bill 1964. So those 3 bills that I outlined, when any of those pass, there's a rider that would transfer those FTEs and money to DIR. And then rider 11 has been revised to allow DIR to use excess fund balances in the clearing fund or telecommunications fund for AI purposes. Previously, those excess fund balances could be used for cybersecurity. Now those can be moved for AI. Under cyber, and you'll recall, because we had put in our exceptional items for cybersecurity and we were pushing forward on those while it was running concurrently with the Cyber Command legislation. So we received the funding for these items, which will then be transferred over to the Texas Cyber Command. So 105 million in general revenue for providing cybersecurity services to state agencies and higher ed over the biennium. That would be for our different network tools, EDR, NDR, multi-factor authentication. Permitting DIR to use up to 3 million a year in additional GR to provide cybersecurity services for state agencies and higher ed upon notification to the LBB. 10 million from general revenue for existing regional security operations centers at UT Austin and UT Rio Grande Valley. 42 million to TEA, the Texas Education Agency, to enter into an agreement with DIR for cybersecurity services to K-12 schools. One thing to note, the only exceptional item that we did not receive funding for and requested was for the 4 additional RSOCs. So there was no funding appropriated by the legislature to expand the RSOC, our regional security operations centers, to 4 new universities. That was a very high level and rapid summary of everything that happened over the past months. I'm happy to take any questions on those. And like I said, we're still wrapping up. And so we will send you an in-depth detailed breakdown.
You expect to have a discussion on the Cyber Command transition over the next board meeting or 2 at least?
Absolutely. We will keep the board informed on the transition with Cyber Command. Under the legislation, once the first step is to start to develop an MOU with Cyber Command. So we'll need Cyber Chief to be appointed by the governor. And then we'll start helping them to transition. We'll have a memorandum of understanding to transfer those duties over in a logical order. What makes the most sense as this agency is being built out. Cyber Command also has the ability through legislation to partner with a state agency for both facilities and for a state agency based in San Antonio, which logically would be UTSA, to partner for administrative support and for facility support.
What is the time frame to transfer all these functions to this new agency, this new cyber task force?
Per the legislation, this needs to be completed by December 31st of 2026. So right before the next legislative session starts. But the MOU needs to be in place, I believe, by September, end of the year, by the end of the year. But we will get that done far sooner so that we can help Cyber Command get up and running.
What's MOU?
I'm sorry, Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay. Which outlines, I take it, the division between DIR and the new Cyber Command.
Correct. It's essentially a contractual document between us and Cyber Command. It'll set out the deadlines, the timing, how funding will transfer and flow. A lot of the funds, actually all of the funding, and I believe the FTEs that are going to Cyber Command, because they don't exist right now, have to go somewhere. So they will come to DIR. And then once they are established and they have a fund, and they're actually an entity that we can start sending those monies to, and the FTE count, the full-time employee accounts, are over to them, we'll start doing that.
Amanda, this is Melody. I have a quick question. So when all of this moves over to the Cyber Command agency, does that include like the work that we're doing with DIR currently on the K-12 initiative?
So it's a great question. the contracting, because those contracts will still remain with DIR. So if we're talking about it, it's chance, if we're talking about the EDR funding and things like that for those services, those are still going to be through contracts held by DIR, but Cyber Command is going to be critically involved with that because some of the folks that you were working with previously in our OCISO office, those folks are transferring to Cyber Command. So I would imagine as we roll that out, and certainly between now and the next biennium, it will be both of us, with eventually, I think we will just have the contractual piece, but your primary contacts will be with Cyber Command.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
So we'll be losing some friends inside DIR, but gaining a partner.
That's exactly right. Okay. All right, thank you all. That concludes my remarks, but I would like to introduce to you all some of the new team members who have joined us since we last met. Right. In our Chief Operations Office, we have Alicia Willis, who joins us as a portfolio project manager. Kiva Moore joins our Chief Technology Office as our Innovation Lab technology coordinator. So doing work there in on so many of those different AI projects. Jennifer Shine joins the Office of General Counsel as an attorney in that shop, and Michelle Turner, an accountant in our Chief Financial Office. Then next up, we have Yesenia Rodriguez, who has joined our Chief Procurement Office and in the Contracts Management shop. Deshaun James joined our Chief Procurement Office in Enterprise Procurements. And Dadrian Brown joined just this week, I believe. And Dadrian is our first apprentice. Y'all will recall the apprentice program, and he is in our Chief Operations Office in Cybersecurity Operations. And we're thrilled to have Dadrian here with us.
Next up on the agenda is an update from procurement and contracting.
Good morning, board. My name is Lisa Masick. I am the Chief Procurement Officer here at DIR. And remarkably, I only have one action item for you today. My first action item. We have one proposed amendment to a DIR internal DIR service contract for your consideration. The proposed amendment is the Gartner Incorporated support with Texas.gov payment services, procurement advisory, and contract implementation services. The contract scope, since August of 2022, Gartner has provided procurement advisory and contract implementation services to DIR. The proposed amendment will allow DIR to continue to leverage and extend support from Gartner for the contract implementation services, specifically for transition of this particular project. Gartner's role in transition includes the implementation and migration of all customers from the previous payment services provider to the recently awarded provider. This contract term was effective in August of 2022, and the current performance period runs through August 31st of 2025. The primary purpose of this proposed amendment is to exercise DIR's option to extend the term of the agreement to August 31st of 2026, leveraging no remaining option periods. The current contract value is $1,501,250 and remains unchanged. The recommended motion is to approve this amendment to extend the service period.
I have a motion to approve amendment number 2 to the service agreement SOW-07-FY22-SA-0037 as presented, and delegate authority to the executive director or designee to execute the contract amendment.
I so move.
Sorry, would you state your name?
Yes, I'm sorry, Catherine Bella moves to
Thank you.
approve.
Thank you, Catherine. May I have a second?
This is Jeffrey Tayon. I so move. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, would you please call roll for vote?
Catherine Bella,
Aye.
Frank Coppersmith.
Aye.
Stephen Frankie,
Aye.
Keith Hallman,
Aye.
Jeffrey Taylor,
Aye.
Ben Gasky.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Thank you.
And now I'll give you a quick high-level review of our cooperative contract sales for the second quarter of 2025. As you can see on our slides here, it's broken down by percentages, but our overall sales were totaling 1.715 billion, which is a reduction in sales of 0.3% or $5.4 million decrease compared to the same period last year. The percentage by channel breakdown is roughly, it's state agency is the highest percentage at 35.4%, followed by local government at 34.7%, then higher ed at 14.4%, K-12 at 13.4%, and then out of state 1.9%, and assistant organizations were 0.3% in the total purchases. The bottom right table reviews spending by channel, which is led by state agencies at 10.1%, which is an increase of roughly 10% or 55 million over last year. Next slide. And as required in our hub reporting, I'm here to report on the hub numbers for DIR internal agency spend. We had hub reportable expenditures in 3 categories, which were special trade, construction, other services, and commodities. Special trade, our hub percentage was at 100% utilization, which is 203% over the goal. For other services, our hub utilization was 11.6%, which we achieved 42.9% of our hub goals. For commodity purchasing, our current hub utilization is 16.82%, achieving 79.71% of our goals. DR's overall agency goal, we are at roughly 12.6% with $2.3 million spent with hubs. The bottom graph will show that our customers are utilizing our cooperative contracts, spending $422.8 million with hubs for 24.65% hub utilization. Next slide. This slide shows our past and upcoming outreach and training events. Our customer trainings, we do in combination with our Chief Experience Officer or office. Our vendor and hub numbers continue to grow. Again, we work with the governor's office with their small business summits, different trade and minority organizations, different agencies and university when it comes to outreach and training. As you can see, upcoming events that we participate in are listed here. This month, we also participated in Senator Westphal Bid Fair up in Dallas. We provide also the portal for the bids to be posted, and then also the award portal for the awards to be posted. And that concludes my remarks today. Thank you.
So,
Chief Financial.
next, an update from Chief Financial Office.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, Nick Villalpando, Chief Financial Officer. Very brief update this morning, and then we'll come back in August when we present the operating budget for next year. So we'll have a longer presentation next time. This time, we're going to basically just go through the financial results through the second quarter. So if we can go to the next slide, please. As you can see here, our gross revenues, we're forecasting to end the year 18% higher than originally budgeted, which is outstanding. We've continued to see a tremendous amount of utilization, particularly in our STS program, Shared Technology Services, from our customers. That program alone, year to date, is up about almost 27% from year to date last year, primarily in technology solution services and public cloud. And so we continue to see growth in the STS utilization by our customers. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then in terms of our operating expenses, right now, we're forecasting to come in slightly under budget at about 2.8% under budget on our operating expenses by the end of the year. So overall, from a top line perspective in terms of revenues and then budget management, we're faring fairly well or pretty well through February, through the second quarter. And then as we go to the next slide with our fund balances, as Mandy mentioned earlier, with the legislation currently pending and passed and is going to be sent to the governor's office from our appropriations bill, the ability to be able to utilize any of our excess fund balances with the creation of Cyber Command and then also the addition of AI functions with DIR, our ability now will be to use excess revenue and fund balance for AI. So continuing on with, if we do have this excess revenue that we generate in some of our other programs, now that cybersecurity will be going to another entity, we'll now be able to use that excess revenue to help fund AI initiatives and programs that are now being established under the agency. So again, that'll help us with the fund balances. So currently through February 28th through the second quarter, looking very well for the agency. Before I close out, I did want to just piggyback a little bit off of some of the comments that Mandy made earlier regarding the work efforts here at the agency and things that have been going on with session, particularly around, she discussed the bills, how many bills have been proposed. One of the functions within DIR is to prepare cost estimates for the legislature's consideration for every bill that is going to have an impact on our agency or our programs in delivering services. And so we submitted, as an agency, we submitted about 143 very detailed cost estimates. They're called fiscal notes. We submitted 143 of those for the legislature's consideration as they were reviewing legislation. And that takes a big effort from, across the agency. However, I want to recognize a couple of folks. The first person I want to recognize is Sally Ward. Out of those 143, Sally Ward in our COO division, she was responsible for 91 of those. She was the subject matter expert for 91 of those bills. So on top of her day job, so to speak, she was leading the charge on evaluating legislation, working with our external vendors when necessary to get cost estimates, coordinating, making sure we were getting them done. And so I just want to recognize Sally. And I also want to recognize Ashley Tedder in our shop. Ashley, I don't know if you want to just stand up real quick and I'll embarrass you just for a minute. She was on call 24/7 because the budget shop is responsible for submitting the fiscal notes to the legislative budget board. So she's on the front line, so to speak. When we get the request, she looks to determine who that needs to get assigned to. And she has to, I don't want to say babysit because that's not, but she monitors and manages it throughout the entire process. And when necessary, she's reaching out to me saying, Nick, where are you with your review? And Mr. Steve Peer, our Deputy Executive Director, asking him the same thing. And so, again, just wanted to recognize those two individuals because that was a huge effort. And while nothing is flawless, it went very smoothly this year.
Congratulations and thank you.
And so with that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
There's Sally, yay.
There's
Sally.
Is there anything she can't do?
I haven't seen it yet.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Next, we have internal audit.
Good morning, Chairman Gatsky and board members. I'm Terry Pierce, the Internal Audit Manager at DIR. Today, I have two items to bring before the board. The first item is the external quality assessment or peer review which was conducted by Brandy Meeks, the Internal Audit Director at Texas Parks and Wildlife. The Texas Internal Auditing Act requires internal auditors to periodically take part in a comprehensive external peer review. It requires internal auditors to conform with the internal audit standards published by the Institute of Internal Auditors and the generally accepted government auditing standards. The report can be found on page 49 of the board book. DIR internal audit received the highest rating of generally conforms and pass for the period under review. The auditors provided opportunities for improvement, which have been implemented or in the process of being implemented. I'm happy to answer any questions on this peer review.
Having listened to those reviews in person, also or haven't read them, thank you for doing what you're doing. We're really proud of what we got. Obviously, there's things to improve on. There's the new standard to implement as well. We'll be following up as the board on that over the next few months to make sure those get implemented completely. But really grateful for your work on that. And I know it's a small shop with a large load. So
thank you. And just so you know, most of the suggestions for the new standards have already been implemented. So I'm very happy about that.
look forward to our next meeting.
And so then on the next slide, the second item I have for the board is a required independence statement, which you will find in the entirety on page 52 of the board book. The standards require an agency internal auditor to annually attest to the board of its organizational independence and any impairments to independence that would prevent the auditor's ability to carry out those responsibilities in an unbiased manner. And I'm happy to report there are no impairments. Then I have one more slide, and that is just a schedule for what the summer is going to look like for internal audit. This is the time of year where the annual risk assessment is conducted. I interview board members, executive leadership, and division directors. A risk table was created of all of the risks that are identified during those interviews, and that is presented to the subcommittee in July in preparation for the annual audit plan, which is presented in August. For board members, those that were here with us last year, I will again send out a link to my calendar to assist you in scheduling times for your interview for your convenience. And then I'll reach out to you to see if you would like those to be held by Zoom link or by Teams. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Look forward to those meetings.
Thank you.
Next, an update from Chief Operations Office.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dale Richardson, Chief Operations Officer. I'll be reporting on service delivery for Q2 FY25 for our Shared Technology Services Program, as well as our Communication Technology Services Program. Starting with our Shared Technology Services, this chart measures the percentage of service level agreements or SLAs attained each month by all our service providers in the STS program. For Q2 FY25, we achieved another solid quarter of service level attainment, 99%. Next, looking at our monthly customer satisfaction, this chart shows the number of customers that rate the overall service they receive as either acceptable, good, excellent for each month. For Q2 FY25, we had another excellent quarter, achieving an average of 99% customer satisfaction. Next, looking at our Communications Technology Services Program, we continue to work with the Texas Facilities Commission on the designs and specifications to provide voice and data services to the two new Capitol Complex buildings going up right next door. We are targeting cable infrastructure bids going out shortly this month, actually in June, and then with actual installations beginning this summer. Those two buildings are expected to be completed in 2027. Next slide depicts a major network refresh project that replaces our existing 100 gigabit network routers with all new routers here on the Capitol Complex. All the equipment has been delivered with implementation starting in June, and we expect this project to complete by the end of this October. The next slide is a new slide that I'll start sharing with the board, which shows the completed work orders by our CTS and CCTS teams. The first chart on the left there shows our CTS and Texan completed work orders. These are orders that are placed by our customers for DIR billed telecommunication services from either the vendors on our Texan contracts or DIR provided services directly, such as internet and private and public file connectivity. In Q2 of FY24, we completed 614 work orders. The next chart we're showing there completed work orders on our Capitol Complex telephone system. These are orders for the centralized managed voice system on the Capitol Complex. In Q2 of FY25, 701 work orders were completed. And then the last chart shows the number of cabling projects DIR completed for state agencies on and off the Capitol Complex. And most of these orders consist of running new voice, video, and data cables for state agency changes they may require. And the team completed 46 projects in Q2. And finally, the next slide shows the number of Texan customers and DIR direct billed purchases. The pie chart on the left for Q2 FY25 shows our customer base increased 2.3% from the previous quarter. And the pie chart on the right shows Q2 FY25 Texan purchases being down 4.5% from Q2 a year ago. This concludes my updates and happy to answer any questions.
You're none.
All
Thank
right.
you. Next, an update from the Chief Information Security Office.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Tony Sauerhoff, State Chief Information Security Officer. Short update for you this morning from OCISO. Slide, please. Some highlights to share. We're working on interagency contracts, new interagency contracts for our 3 existing RSOCs at Angelo State and UT-RGV and UT Austin. The existing IACs expire at the end of August, and we expect to have new IACs ready to go at that point. We finalized and published training criteria for FY26 annual cybersecurity awareness training. That's out there. The window actually opens on June 1st in a couple days for entities to submit new training programs to us for the FY25-26 period. That will be open from June 1st and through the end of July. And then we'll review, certify those training programs and get the list out there of programs available for the next FY. We usually certify about 120, 125 training programs for use across the state. Then I'll mention here on this slide the sector-specific cybersecurity training. Those of you that were members will remember a couple of years ago we created a law enforcement specific cyber training with TEAX in partnership with TEAX, Texas A&M Extension. That was well received, and we followed that up with one that's just finished and launched actually last week, water sector specific. So that's launched. It's out there available on TEAX's website. It's a 4-hour asynchronous web-based cyber training program for folks that water sector operators targeted at them. And we are working on a new one now with in partnership with Texas Tech University, focused on energy sector, specifically electrical. Next slide, please. Couple TexRAMP updates here. TexRAMP recertifications are underway. Our first TexRAMP, our first ever TexRAMP certification turned 3 years old in March, a couple of months ago. And that's when recertifications are required at the 3-year mark. So we started our recertification program this year. We'll be recertifying, you see here about 34 in 2025, because that's the number that we certified in 2022, and we'll pick up, increase greatly as we move forward. But we continue to certify new applications, new submissions, and now have added the recertification process. And then here I'll mention also an update to the security controls catalog that we're working on. We made some updates, corrected some hyperlinks and a couple of other small mistakes, but mostly to add 7 controls to the catalog to align completely with the Texas Cybersecurity Framework, and worked with the CySAC policy subcommittee on those updates, and have them on board, and currently are soliciting comments from stakeholders right now as required for a 30-day period. So we'll look to bring that to you all later this year for approval, hopefully. Next slide, please. And then the last slide here for me, we have our LBB defined goals for security assessments and penetration tests for the FY. We're low halfway through the year, halfway through the FY. We're under 50%, but that we think is just largely to do with session and a low demand from agencies out there to be involved with security assessments during the legislative session. We do have a larger number underway and in the queue right now, and don't expect any issues with reaching those goals by the end of the FY. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Tony, I have a question for you about the sector-specific cyber security trainings.
Sure.
What kind of things are included in the water and wastewater sector cyber training? What do you do in this 4 hours of training that you talked about?
Well, there are a lot of just general cyber awareness, information in those kinds of trainings. It covers the basics. There are some things that are the same between, but specific to the water sector training, it gets into ICS systems, industrial control systems, and on the OT, or the operational technology side, attacks that are specific to those types of systems, and what operators, water system operators, should look for to notice an attack on those types of systems, and things that they can do to help prevent attacks specific to those types of systems in those environments.
Could you give me an example?
Give you an example. Well, we've heard, in the last year or so, it's been out in the news that a few water systems in Texas, Muleshoe is the one that's been mentioned quite a bit, has been, some bad actors were in their SCADA system and changed some controls and made their water tanks overflow. Just more of a show that they could do it more than anything. Didn't cause huge problems, other than the loss of some water. But the threat actors were trying to show that they could do that. So it's looking at the things that allowed for that type of attack to happen. Worse things could have been done in that instance. Luckily, all it was overflowing some tanks. But it's looking at the things that we know allowed for that attack to happen, and then making some recommendations to prevent those kinds of attacks in the future.
And how did it happen?
Well, in that case, their ICS control system was exposed to the internet with some default credentials. So in that case, it was not very difficult for the threat actors to get in and do what they did.
And when you're preparing this electricity training, is that for protection of the Texas electric grid?
The same types of things, yes, specific to the operators in that environment. We are working with Texas Tech and for that one, because of their expertise, the folks that are working with us for that, we're leaning on them for their expertise in that sector. And we also, for that training in particular, we are working with ERCOT as well, is working with us as a consultant, in a consultant sort of role making sure that the content is appropriate.
And is this cyber training, for instance, for the water, is that that's already available? Is that required of every water system in Texas now?
It's not required at all. Now, what we did do, going back to when we launched the law enforcement training, we were told early on that, if you want any folks in that community to spend any time taking some training, a 4-hour training is a lot when they have a lot of other training requirements. They have a minimum number of TCOL continuing education credits that they have to take in a year. So we made sure that training program was TCOL certified for 4 TCOL credits for that law enforcement community. Well, same thing applies on the water sector side. It's not TCOL, but through TCEQ, there are some continuing education requirements. So while that training itself isn't a requirement, it helps them meet their overall general continuing education requirements. So again, it's a 4-hour training. It satisfies 4 continuing education requirements for the overall requirement for those operators.
Seems like these trainings ought to be required, don't you think?
I say yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the comment. Next, an update from the Chief Technology Office.
Good morning. My name is Dave Tucker. I'm Director of Strategic Digital Services. I work for John Hoffman in the Chief Technology Office, and I appreciate this opportunity to visit with you. Thank you. Next slide, please. Folks, we're going to send you an email today regarding the cybersecurity training for DIR employees and board members. This year's training program has been expanded, and it now includes new content on generative AI and deepfakes and core privacy fundamentals. It should take less than an hour to complete this training. We have a completion target date of August 1st, 2025. 31st, 2025, excuse me. And if you've already completed a certified cybersecurity awareness training in 2025, please just send Teresa the completion certificate. If you have any questions or encounter any issues, also don't hesitate to contact Teresa at the email that she sends you the training from. That's who the email is going to come from. And we want to thank you for y'all's continued support of our agency's cybersecurity program. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get that done.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Strategic Digital Services, that's the section that I run. We have continued to hold workshops and open houses, conferences, and what we call Art of the Possible sessions, both virtually and most often in person at the Innovation Lab that we have at the Sam Houston building. We have events of some manner every single week, participation from 27 agencies and institutes of higher education so far. This is where public sector workers can engage in emerging technology in a safe and secure and a supervised environment. Just the second week in May, a few weeks ago, we had an AI code transformation open house. We brought in some leaders in that industry, and we had both agencies and support staff from the Legislative DOGE Committee come in, and they could directly engage with technology and see it in action. Next slide, please. The Artificial Intelligence User Group is continuing also to grow both in influence and headcount. We're up to 700 members, about 300 of which show up at the meetings. We discuss data literacy, AI ethics, guardrails, security, and the most popular presentations are really the ones where public sector users come and talk about their programs and their projects that they've implemented. What went well, what pain points were they trying to attack, what lessons learned did they have. Those are the meetings that really get a good response. We also have in-person conferences. We've had 3 AI Day events, and we're coming up just on June 13th of this year. HHS and DIR are co-hosting an event on AI in healthcare. And we're deep into planning the 4th full AI Day. We're targeting August 1st for that, and we hope to increase attendance to 300 at our next AI conference. Finally, we're well underway in creating a whole new AI literacy program, which gets reviewed by volunteer members of the AI user group, those public sector workers. We hope to roll out the first foundational module by the end of the summer, if all goes well. Any questions about the Innovation Center or the user group?
Is there another meeting? You had one in February and May. Is there another one coming up that's not the health specific one?
Yeah, the one in August is not health specific. It's just broad. We'd love for you to attend. That'd be great. Update on the state strategic plan. We're going to bring that plan to the October board meeting for review. And here's the process so far. The first advisory committee meeting on April 30th, we had that and we gathered feedback from the committee on the current state strategic plan. That feedback is going to help us build on the current plan and evolve that plan to reflect changes that have occurred over the past 2 years. Remember, it's a 5-year plan that we update every 2 years. It's always looking 5 years out. Again, that strategic plan will be brought to you for review and approval at the October board meeting. Next slide, please. Part of the sunset review included recommending that we continue to engage with small and medium-sized agencies. So we had a small to medium-sized agency IRM roundtable with those information resource managers from agencies that have 500 or fewer employees. There was a lot of focus on network services and solutions that meeting. One takeaway we heard is that it can be challenging for them from a resource perspective. Finding network technologists is hard for smaller agencies. We may bring some solutions to y'all to consider in the future on that topic. I don't have anything concrete now, but that's a potential future topic. Folks, that's what I got. Any questions on anything I discussed?
None. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, an update from the Chief Data Office.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Neil Cook, State Chief Data Officer. So the quarterly Data Management Advisory Committee meetings, or DMAC meetings, continue to go very well with strong engagement from the data officers, exchanging strategies, tactics, lessons learned, most recently through presentations by the Lower Colorado River Authority, the Texas Department of Insurance, Department of State Health Services, and Texas Tech University. Additionally, as you know, last year I hosted a dozen small breakout sessions with data officers from across the state to discuss their common challenges and share their experiences. And to build on that, I recently surveyed the data officers to talk about their priority topics. And I'll be scheduling some focused discussions based on their responses, giving the participants the chance for a deeper dive into the issues that they said they care about the most. Additionally, this past quarter, we developed 2 closed data portals. The closed data portal provides a free, secure platform for agencies interested in privately sharing data sets. And unlike the open data portal, this can include personally identifiable information, or PII. The first was to support the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission and their desire to exchange data with their industry alcohol management system, or AIMS. And the second was to support the Human Resources State Agency Coordinating Subcommittee, also known as SEC-HR, and their sharing of resources across their member agencies. The Texas Open Data Portal continues to grow by leaps and bounds, with this fiscal year already closing in on last year's numbers, with visits and downloads in the hundreds of thousands. And we continue to discuss the merits of the Open Data Portal, the benefits, and how to participate, including at our Open Data Portal User Group, or ODPUG as it's known, our quarterly get-together. And last month, we were also asked by the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, or TSLAC, to present on the topic of the Open Data Portal, its benefits, etc., at their annual in-person gathering of records information managers. Next slide, please. The data literacy program, level 2 courses continue to be actively developed with topics and priorities being shaped by our annual data literacy assessment. The assessment gathers insights from agencies and institutions of higher ed on their data literacy needs, and that guides the course development for the year ahead. Next slide, please. This slide shows the data literacy program participation, here broken out by agencies or higher ed or local government. There are now 130 individuals registered for data literacy courses. Those are predominantly data management officers. and their teams. 25 organizations have chosen to use some or all of our content in their own learning management systems. And 23,000 people have enjoyed the quiz-free version of these courses on YouTube now. Next slide. And finally, here's a selection of the data management program briefings that we've conducted and the different workshops we've attended, where we've been able to provide guidance and best practices around data management. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, update from the Chief Experience Office.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members. Happy to see you and provide these updates. As a reminder, the Chief Experience Office includes most of the outreach responsibilities for DIR programs. These outreach activities include cybersecurity, where we hosted 5 educational webinars last quarter and supported projects for the Chief Information Security Office, Office of the Chief Information Security Officer. We also host technology guidance and education events for agency leaders. And last quarter, we hosted insights for agency executives and roundtable discussions for technology leaders, like the one Dave Tucker spoke about earlier. CXO also directs many of the outreach efforts for procurement and contracting, and I want to take some time just to drill down on these efforts today so you know the efforts we are taking to promote our DIR contracts and how customers can leverage those solutions. So thank you. Tom Hay, DIR's procurement and contract outreach and education coordinator, is largely a one-person wonder. He works with the Comptroller of Public Accounts to host trainings for contract developers, contract managers, and purchasers for a total of 47 trainings with over 1,800 participants last year. Of course, you know, DIR Connect is one of our major procurement outreach avenues, and 2024 DIR Connect was a huge success with over 500 attendees from across our customer base. CXO works closely with the Chief Procurement Office for this conference and looks forward to the next one coming in 2026. And DIR also hosts customer training webinars in association with the Governor's Small Business Summit, while our Chief Procurement Office works with the Governor's Office to provide vendor trainings across the state in support of small businesses. CXO researches and finds potential customers in those local government entities and conducts presentations on navigating DIR. Year to date, we have reached 178 counties with the goal of reaching all counties by 2027. Next slide, please. I also want to provide information on the main conferences we attend to speak with our customers. We do our best to ensure we are meeting customers where they are with these conferences, including targeting school districts, local government, and out-of-state entities. As you know, DIR does a lot, and getting the word out on how we can help is crucial to all of our success and statewide efficiency. So I want to thank Tom Hay for all of the outreach efforts for procurement and contracting. Thanks. The statewide digital accessibility program helps state agencies make Texas government websites, IT, and technology services accessible to every Texan. In the last quarter, the program grew to include 256 members, up from 221 last quarter. We continue to onboard state employees to our Access U Academy for accessibility continuing education, and our coffee chat attendance is averaging about 100 attendees per month, covering issues like the recent federal rule change for accessibility compliance. Next slide. Our social media presence continues to grow in our followers. Our top posts from last quarter include our cybersecurity training video, our celebration at the Texas Capitol when the Texas House of Representatives adopted a resolution for our former Chief Information Security Officer, Nancy Rainisek, and our celebration of Executive Director Crawford and our People and Culture Officer, Lisa Jammer, winning State Scoop Awards. Lastly, I'd like to provide updates on customer experience focus areas that we are working on. These are the activities we have been conducting internally with DIR divisions and externally with our agency customers. A few things to highlight here are the past quarter, we've put a lot of focus on operationalizing customer experience, where we are embedding CX in agency projects. We launched a survey feedback tool in May earlier this month on our website. So you'll see a little button on our website to provide, or customers can provide feedback on our website. And we are developing dashboards and project portfolios to track our efforts. We are also working closely with DIR's People and Culture Office on the processes for hiring and onboarding new employees, new employee orientation, and the current employee experience. We are thinking through our Center of Excellence and thinking through what that looks like as we are finding and meeting more and more individuals across the state interested in customer experience. And of course, continuing our customer experience education and outreach efforts and ways we can help other agencies adopt CX concepts. Our overall goals with the CX program are to find opportunities to not only give customers the best experience, but also to save time and resources, eliminate pain points, and of course, gain efficiencies in state government. So members, I welcome any questions and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I hear none.
Thank you.
Concludes the official agenda for today, but I believe we might have a public testimony.
We do. We have announced public testimony from one person, Mr. David Hindrow-Rowan.
This time I'd like to acknowledge David for public comment. Please introduce yourself, who you represent. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes or allow others to opportunity to testify as well.
All right. Sorry, this is me. Do I face this way or this way?
Do we want on the appear?
So he could appear on the camera.
If you can stand right here on the.
You just need some.
Okay. Thank you. We're just off camera, but please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. My name is David Hindrow-Rowan, and I serve across public, private, and academic sectors here in Texas. I'm currently a data and AI consultant at Informatica, which just recently got acquired by Salesforce. I'm an adjunct faculty at the University of Texas, teaching AI data governance and cybersecurity product management. I'm also the chair of Generative AI Special Interest Group under Data Management Association, which I started under the guidance and encouragement of the retired Chief Data Officer, Mr. Ed Kelly. I provided various AI and cyber speaking and training to industry groups such as the South Texas ISSA and Houston InfraGuard, Agile Austin, ISACA, and also had the pleasure of presenting to the Texas State Agency Business Administrators Association, or TSABA, at the Texas State Capitol, as well as a presentation to the Texas Agriculture Commissioner and his staff at their office. Across these experiences, I've observed tremendous interest in how AI is being adopted. Industry, academia, and community organizations are making major strides. Unfortunately, a lot of the efforts are still fragmented. They're not always working in sync. This is especially concerning as generative AI tools are now being used heavily by students at the K-12 and higher education, and by young workforce who look up to the social media influencers and marketers who are teaching them how to do things such as vibe coding to develop custom applications, often doing so without foundation in data governance, cybersecurity, or ethical design. This is why I wanted to commend the Department of Information Resources for its leadership. Excited about Senate Bill 1964, particularly in the creation of the AI sandbox, ethical framework, and the new AI division. The inclusion of education function is absolutely timely and necessary, and I'm excited to see the updates earlier about the strategic digital services and the AI user group. In that spirit, I'd like to share a few initiatives that I currently am pursuing along with other people in the community, and to see if any of this may align and support DIR's mission. First, we have a mentoring and volunteer group with recent UT and Texas A&M graduates. Many of them today are still seeking employment. And the university is allowed me to work with them to organize efforts to create programs and products to extend AI literacy and responsible development for the community and educational settings. Second, we're chairing the Generative AI Special Interest Group at DEMA International, and we're creating best practices for addressing risks in the low-code and AI-generated data tools. Third, I'm coordinating a public university AI competition with assistant deans at Texas A&M, Mace, and UT Austin Macomb School of Business, and we're extending invitations between these two schools as well as Notre Dame. We're trying to model ethical AI innovation across these institutions. Fourth, I'm collaborating with NVIDIA leadership to support AI literacy framework. Their vice president is working directly with Texas University leaders to promote responsible AI education. And as I understood, it's intending to reach Governor Abbott as well. And the final one, fifth, supporting the Senior Director of Cybersecurity Programs at San Jacinto College to explore how we can integrate cyber AI literacy into the curriculum for applied learning tracks for two-year colleges and vocational training programs. These programs are already active and intended to complement existing public sector efforts. And if any of these initiatives can support the IR's goals, whether in education, responsible AI deployment, or cross-sector alignment, I'd be honored to contribute however needed. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for the opportunity to support Texas in advancing trustworthy and inclusive AI.
Thank you very much for your comments. So concluding all formal agenda and comments, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn the meeting. This is Jeff Tayon.
May I have a second?
Catherine Bella will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.